Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have INFP career choices. And so Sean, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, so my name's Sean. I run a channel, INFP. I've been doing it for a couple years now. Haven't posted in a few months, or a couple months, I should say, because I'm trying to do some social burnout recovery. But I appreciate the invite, Joyce, and that's all I gotta say.
Cool. It's nice to see you back on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe you'll spark my, maybe you'll spark it back up.
Yeah. And Mallory?
Hi, my name's Mallory. I'm an INFP 9-wing 8. I'm from California. I do art and I edit videos and I like to have a good time. That's all I gotta say.
Awesome. And Cristian?
My name is Cristian. I'm also from California, Southern California. Actually don't live too far away from Mallory and Erica. SoCal represent. And I will hopefully be starting next year in a PhD program in history. I'll be applying in the fall, and I hope to be studying the connection between enslaved Africans' juridical status as slaves and how the status induced strategic behaviors to construct and cultivate kinship formation and identity.
That's fantastic.
Dang.
And yeah, impressive. And Paul?
Well, Joyce just said my name, so I don't know if I need to repeat it. Although at work, I often get called Crazy Paul. And by people that know my twin Jeff, I often get called Jeff. Wait, no. I work as a personal trainer, specializing with clients with special needs in Toronto in Canada. I'm actually about probably half an hour from Joyce's house. I've been to her house. She just didn't know I was there. And I absolutely love irony, so I'm super excited to do a panel about INFP and picking a career. Sounds like
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So initially this panel was supposed to be about the INFP flirting style, but that would just be a very quick panel of INFPs going like, we just don't flirt. So
we love you and don't talk to you. Yeah.
Lots of blushing and giggling.
Yes. So this panel has just as much irony to it. Like picking a career choice when a lot of INFPs, it takes them a while to figure out the perfect career for them because their FI is searching for one that's meaningful and significant. And not a lot of jobs are meaningful and significant. Yeah. And Erica?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm INFP 9. And the job thing, when you first said that that's what we were going to be talking about, I kind of smiled to myself because that has been like for my whole life, like, But I'm a massage therapist. I'm a mom of 5, so I have some vocation in my life at least. I have lots of ideas of what I'd like to do and what I talk about it all the time. Ooh, what will I do after X, Y, and Z happens and stuff like that. So yeah.
Great stuff. We have a mama in the house. And Martin?
Hi, my name is Martin. I live in Toronto, Canada. I'm American and Canadian. I was born in Toronto.
He's still ours. Back off. He's still ours.
No. Wait.
I was born in Canada, but I moved to the United States, and then I moved back to Canada. So
why?
I'm just
well, that's my identity for now, right?
I think
Yeah. Martin is
so
ours.
much better.
There's a battle for your soul going on here.
I know.
Actually, no, I agree. California's probably better.
It is. Our weather is so much better. Like you can't. I mean, we within like what, an hour's drive, you can go to the beach, the mountains, or the desert. I mean,
I'm originally from Oceanside. So I don't know if you guys are around that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
we're kind of around Oceanside. Okay. Well, Erica currently is I mean, she's currently in Orange County, so she's sort of closer in that direction. But why? But isn't So Kelsey produces the best INFPs.
Christian's FI is all tied up in California.
Oh yeah,
and especially Southern California. I was talking to him a few months ago about how we were trying to figure out where to move because we're in the process of move. And Christian is just like, we were talking about out of state, and he's like, why?
I feel bad, Martin. Sorry, this just became a battle for your soul.
I know. I love how INFPs, it's just like you just take one thing in my sentence and then just run off with it, whatever you want. It's your own little universe.
This happened like in another INFP panel where like there was a massive debate on like baking and cooking and whether or not like baking. Yeah, whether or not like baking was a science or not. It was fantastic.
Oh, it is.
Baking is more of a science.
Oh no, not again.
Well, what's his name is not here, so we're good.
I'm not. I do cooking and I don't bake, and I really think baking is far more of a science.
Does anyone have Joyce's angina medication on hand? Because she's just gonna.
I know we're messing up her intro.
Yeah,
thing.
we're just like. Anyways, I'm a 4-wing 5, and
same.
It's weird because I've been firmly in a career stream for a long period of time, but then I think that there are like other kind of tributaries and other like smaller streams within that. But I graduated from University of Toronto with a Master of Divinity. I've worked as a pastor, and also I worked as a chaplain within the Salvation Army. So I've experience with like counseling and preaching and Bible studies and, kind of religious kind of things.
Cool. We should talk about hermeneutics, biblical hermeneutics later.
We should have an INFP religion panel one day.
Yes.
Religion, spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And so with the last panel we had INTJ and INFP dynamics, it was supposed to be about INTJs and INFPs and how they get along, but we just ended up talking about every topic except that topic for a majority of the video.
That's amazing.
We got down to the point where they were talking about what consciousness is.
That was fun.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm going to try to jade this conversation once again.
Please do. Please save us, Joyce.
Yes.
Yeah, we need help.
Yeah. And so job choices and job history and your history with finding a job that fits you and suits you, just your general thoughts on finding a career and finding a job. Where do your thoughts take you when you think of jobs and careers? How often do you think about it? How big of a stressor is it on you? How hard is it to find something that you're passionate about? What are you passionate about? Okay, anything job related. Go.
Oh my God. I will go. And I have a lot to say, so this is going to take
that's why I didn't go, because I was like, I'm going to rant forever. So
yeah,
same.
Yeah, we have a story.
So let's get going. So I've had a really, as is common with a lot of INFPs, I've had like a fairly tumultuous journey with jobs. So I went to undergrad. I was a history major, and then my intent was to, go to law school because, I was like, what am I going to do with history? And that seemed to be a common career field that history majors go into. So I went to law school, and it was probably like the most like awful, horrific experience I've ever been in. And I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but it was really difficult because, I didn't find this out till later, but like essentially law school was forcing me to use my unconscious cognitive functions, essentially. It's law school is a very TE heavy trade. Well, law is a TE heavy trade. And so that was, I didn't realize at the time because I wasn't familiar with the Myers-Briggs system, but I struggled so much. And I was extremely stressed out all the time. And then what exacerbated that, I think, is said this many times in Joyce's channel, but you know, I was diagnosed with ADHD, but this was after law school, so I think that like kind of exacerbated my experience. So after and then I got my MBA as well, because I did a dual degree program because I was thinking of going to business law, and then maybe eventually kind of like doing something business related outside of the law. So then I graduated and like I had like an identity crisis. So like I was really unhappy. I had interned for an attorney and it was not what I thought it was. Any experience. so like and you know, so I was talking to a friend and her dad, and he was an ENTJ, and he basically was like, figure out what it is that you're passionate about. Because we were having a discussion about like, I was having second thoughts maybe about being a lawyer and all that other stuff. So he actually encouraged me to follow my FI. So I really thought about it, and I realized like I actually didn't want to be a lawyer, and like the reasons for wanting to be a lawyer had nothing to do with what I was really interested in. So like so I graduated in 2016, and I spent the past 4 years in like various retail jobs. I'm currently door dashing, but like I was really trying to like figure out what it was that I wanted to do. I went, you know, to my career counselor, and she was familiar with Myers-Briggs. And so having taken classes and stuff like that. So she was really trying to help me narrow down career choices. So like, it's just been a really tumultuous ride with like trying to figure out, like, as I said in the beginning, like I've now decided that I want to get my PhD in history, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changed at some point, you know, because it's I don't know. I think it's hard for INFPs just because like our identity is constantly evolving, and so like our interests can change, and so then I think then that like so then what we're passionate about, and we're really interested in, like then changes, and that affects like the kind of career choices that we might want to pursue. And then also I think like there's the idealism aspect where like we idealize certain things in our heads, and then like we don't understand what we're getting into until we're actually experiencing it. So like I think like all of those factors like compound together to like create like this kind of like tension between like an existential crisis sometimes, but like what INFPs want to do in their life. So it's like it's a struggle, and it's never going to be perfect. And that's the problem, is that like I was just talking about this with an INFP, like literally 5 minutes before I got on this chat. Like he was saying that he was struggling to like, he has an ideal and he was struggling to like compromise his ideals and just be in reality. And like that is like can be really painful for INFPs, is because like we know how imperfect the world is and how much it can ruin or tarnish or contaminate like our ideals and what we would like to see. And so like it's really hard to reconcile the fact that like it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly how we want things to be. But I think it's really critical and necessary for us to do that in order for us to like move forward and actually be happy and figure out some way to compromise like our ideals with like how they actually manifest themselves in the real world. So yeah, it's a very sensitive and complicated topic, I think, for us and for me personally.
That's really well put, Cristian. INFPs are famous for their quarter life crisis, so they tend to have these existential crises really early on in their life. And yes, with INFPs, Cristian messaged me earlier, and he said this: it's pretty common for INFPs to experience wandering for years to try to figure out our lives. Yeah. And you mentioned the shifting passions aspect too, because the INFP's FI identity is always evolving. Its interests evolve too. And sometimes it'll be more inclined to want to do one thing, and then maybe at one point of their life, their identity shifts and then they feel more inclined to do another thing. And so I have a lot of INFP clients. They'll mention taking time to find the job that's right for them, because a lot of jobs, they aren't soul-fulfilling. Like they're just for money. And so that rubs the inferiority in the wrong way. And it's like, you just want to work for no point, even if it doesn't make you happy. Yeah. And so who else wants to go next?
Well, being 24, I'm literally in the midst of the chaos of my mind because it is quarter life crisis time, and I just graduated college, well, a year ago, but I'm currently trying to figure out an actual career as opposed to just making some random money for random freelance jobs, because I want security and I want to be able to move out and make my own money and have my own place, so I'm not living off my parents until forever, which there shouldn't really be any shame in, first of all. But
right,
forever,
I'm 34 and I still live with my parents.
right. You live in California, it's totally okay. Like, it's insane out here.
Cost of living, crazy.
Yes. But like a lot of INFPs, I've been through a lot of different ideas for jobs. Like when I was a kid, the first job I ever wanted was a ride operator because I thought I could get on the ride. I could start the ride and get on.
I love that.
That's so cute, Mallory. I love that.
Yeah.
So my parents still make fun of me. They're like, you know what? If you don't get a job, you're going to be a ride operator. I was like, that's fine. And then I think at one point I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I think that's still cool, but job security, I don't know. And I think at one point I wanted to be a therapist. So that was like in high school when I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. But I didn't realize how much education goes into that. And I was like, I don't know if my interest is deep enough for me to go through all these years of school and then have to hear people's sad stories and basically be depressed all the time.
Yep.
I pick up on everything, and we're like, I was thinking about child services too, and like, I would just be miserable.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but like that was my biggest thing, because I had like for a moment I was thinking about being a therapist, because everyone's like, you're so good at like talking to people and giving advice, and I was like, I don't like, even though they teach you like how to like kind of separate yourself from like what your clients are saying, and like a lot of therapists have therapists, I still can't do the separation. I just would not be able to do it. Like,
it's hard. You know, this is a real life. This is a person that you're dealing with, and you're getting to know this person, maybe even like just actually enjoying the person. So having to hear their story is just sad. So I was like, I don't know if I can go into this. Like, I like people. I like who they are, but I don't know if I want to know everything about their lives.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I went to school for psychology. That was my major for a while. And then I switched to media studies because when I was a kid, I used to make movies with my friends and my sisters and with dolls. And so I was like, okay, I like being behind the camera, so maybe I should go into media studies and get to learn people's stories that way, or, you know, create stories or something like that. And so currently I'm looking for a job that is behind the camera or something like that, or doing some way to like get to learn people and getting true stories out of people. That's what I love. So something like that for now. But it's really, really hard to find a job in that sort of non-traditional way. And so there's a lot of networking, and there's a lot of trying to make people like you. And I'm very bad at that. Like, I'm very genuine. I'm very like, these are my, it's just hard to get in the industry. And I can't at it, but you can only learn so much. You have to get out there, and that's the hardest thing ever.
Yeah, I noticed with some INFPs, there's this aversion towards networking. And, you know, after a long time of kind of pushing away the TE, for the INFP, there can be insecurity or anxiety around how productive they're being in their lives. Yeah. And so, Paul, you talked to me before about networking and about how you don't like it too. And I'm like, wow, Mallory.
I totally knew you were thinking of our conversations when you brought that up. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's kind of terrifying to put yourself out there. You know, when an FI Dom is going to put themselves out there, they're really going to put everything they have out there, and only to realize that it's for a purpose that doesn't actually fulfill or satisfy. And having to constantly be authentic, I think that's where the INFP idealism can be very, very much a letdown when it comes to finding some kind of career. It is about kissing cheek. It's about networking. It's about who you know, rather than sort of the content of your character or the competencies that you've developed on your own, right? It's about the connections you've made. That's what makes so much of life success these days. And that can be very challenging, very disheartening, I think, for the INFP.
That's so true. That is tough waters for the INFP. And so, Paul, would you like to describe your journey figuring out a career that's right for you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess I should have seen that as like the invitation to monologue. I'm sorry about that. Finding a career, I was always conflicted with my seemingly incessant daydreaming. Always imagining the world could be a certain way and wanting to live in a sort of fantastic world. You know, when I was younger, you know, I wanted to be a superhero. I was obsessed with that. I desperately wanted to be a superhero. Now, what's changed now that I'm 27 years old is that I don't tell people that as often. That's about it. And frankly, everything has been in some way trying to approximate that archetype in my life, in my career. You know, when I kind of figured out, when I got heartbroken and realized that superheroes aren't real, you know, my mind went to other places. I loved movies. I wanted to be an actor when I was younger. I also got into music, and I thought I wanted to be a musician. I like performing. I always loved music. I love its ability to take you into a different world. You know, I mean, kind of played around with different notions. So a lot of it was really just like internal lip service. Then, you know, my dad kind of pushed me in the direction of psychology because he saw how curious I was about people. I think I latched onto that fairly quickly because of being an identical twin. That has affected so much of my life and my career choice. You know, I think being an IP is hard enough. Being an INFP is even harder because it's the soft, mushy stuff that no one can seem to really appreciate, that dominates your personality. Adding on being an identical twin made it very challenging to establish a firm identity. And it's actually why for a while I didn't think I was an INFP at all. Like I studied typology for the past decade on my own, quite extensively, reading a lot of the original texts, obsessing about it. Of course, you know, hey guys, have you heard about the Myers-Briggs? You know, all that. You guys know what that's like. But I was convinced I was INFJ for so long. I didn't see where I went wrong until I actually met Joyce. But finding and establishing a firm identity was always a very challenging thing when one of 3 kids and having that identical twin. Like my identity seemed that it exists relative to another identity always. I was always one of the Bruce twins. Or my dad was also the community pastor, so I was one of the pastor's kids. And I was very much in that community spotlight. You know, the teachers at school knew who my dad was. He's very charismatic, and not just because he looks exactly like Robert Downey Jr. I swear to God, people have actually told him that randomly on the subway, and his response was, "I don't know what you're talking about," which is great. He's a good fit. He's a pastor. So being in that I guess that visibility made it so that I became very performative at an early age. Yeah, so then Cristian was going, now it makes sense, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I mean, because
it's the FE culture that you had to, you know, you were brought up in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some people, you know, like Cristian, have kind of wondered and asked about it and noticed it. And I've been taking more stock of it. Like I like, in some ways, I like performing. I like cracking people up. I kind of like being a jester. But a lot of that still comes from being in attention, but also wanting to have individuality within that attention. Have a separate identity from my lookalike and from my family. So, I mean, it's always been it's always been a very loose relationship with identity, frankly. And as I got older, as I did my psych degree, I quite enjoyed it. I took some courses in poetry and philosophy as well, but I loved learning psychology. I quite did, and I really enjoyed learning the material. When I got to my last year, and people said, "Oh, well, what are you going to do next?" I was like, "Oh, I'll probably go to grad school." And then I realized, oh no, you need to have basically secured a supervisor already. You have to do an undergraduate thesis project with a supervisor. All these TE things I just didn't notice because I kind of didn't care about it. I thought, I'm going to learn, I'm going to understand the human animal, I'm going to understand behavior, I'm going to understand consciousness, I'm going to understand this so I can bring it to others and help them understand themselves, help them direct themselves. I had to. I'm surprised I didn't have to get stitches. After I kept shooting myself in the foot all 4 years of that undergraduate career. In my last year, I got a job as a personal trainer. I got my certification and started as a personal trainer because I ran out of rent money and I needed a job, and there was a gym at my school. Now, I've enjoyed parts of it. It doesn't quite speak to my soul, but there are times when it's rewarding. The times when it's most rewarding are when I'm working with clients with disabilities. Whether it's someone with Down syndrome who's pretty nonverbal, and I get to kind of discover what it is they enjoy, how they can get engaged with their unique style of training. Right? I don't just give someone a cookie cutter workout plan. I have basic template of things we need to work on, different movement, to squat, to push, to pull, to lunge, but find variations that are going to work for them. The things that have made this job the most tolerable, frankly, has been working with clients with cerebral palsy. I had one client who mostly went around a wheelchair, and eventually started using a walker, and that was helpful. And after I think about 4 months, I had her walking unassisted for 2 minutes on her own. Like a freaking badass. She sent me videos even one time when she was skateboarding. I'm like, that's amazing. It felt so good to help someone reach a potential in that way. Now, I don't think personal training is that career I'm going to stick with for the rest of my life. I truly don't. I think I'm going to build up a private business, going to keep it going for a few years until I kind of find the next thing I really want to do. But in this process, how I've come to perceive it is my kind of career trajectory is not in terms of a specific job, but in terms of an overall purpose. I think type can help us understand that as well, because whether it's an interest in acting or doing something like personal training, you think this might seem. You seem like the only similarity between those is that they often involve hot people, and I'm not one of those people. But with those clients that I had, it was very I did really engage in that idealistic process, as if the world is multiple things at the same time, and it is multiple grades of beautiful, of perfect. It's like we can try to approximate an ideal world, kind of in the Platonic form sense. So what I want to do with whatever it is I'm doing is help people see that if the world is this, it could be something greater, and try to minimize that gap. Whether it's someone who thinks they're bound to a wheelchair and won't be able to walk, right? My client's seen that it's just a matter of her will, her determination, and her focus that can allow her to break beyond the barrier she thought she had. That is very satisfying. I did want to be a therapist for a while, and I did volunteer at a suicide hotline in preparation to enter a Master's of Social Work program. I did the first week of the program. Realized financially I couldn't manage it, so I just pulled out. But it didn't really disappoint me. I felt like there were a lot of ideologies trying to be pushed down my throat, and I think my FI rebelled against that. And it's like, no, you're not going to tell me what's right or wrong. You're not going to tell me what I value. So I'm okay with that path sort of disappearing. But also that suicide hotline, man, it burnt me out. I have not recovered. That was like a year and a half ago. That was really tough. But with the uncertainty, I guess, where it's changed is seeing the greater picture, seeing the greater theme. Not a specific job, but what I want to do with the jobs I have, what I want to do to the world, and have whatever career I'm in be the vehicle for that. So that's where I'm feeling a little more comfortable. And this has been a monologue. Last thing I want to say is, Sean, the video you posted a few months ago on sort of like the INFP quarter life crisis and kind of having the success like later on in life, that literally changed my life. If you guys have not seen it, it's a fantastic video. It really helped me understand that. I think Joyce kind of pointed out, a lot of people are going to have the midlife crisis. In 40, 50, they're going to wake up and go, what the hell am I doing with my life? They got a good job with good pension, good stability, and then they feel they have no satisfaction, or they don't, it doesn't truly satisfy their soul. I think it's INFPs, we're sort of front loading that crisis. We're going to have that question of identity, struggle with it, and then get to the second half of life. I think we're just going to be sailing. So that's sort of where my I can't spoke today. I'm sorry. That's kind of where my perspective has changed a bit. Is seeing that right now, this period is going to be a period of exploration, and eventually I'll find something that I really love, and I'll make it work.
That's beautiful, Paul. There are a few takeaways you can get from that. I've interviewed quite a few INFPs, and I noticed there's a trend towards special needs and taking care of people with special needs, and some INFPs, not all INFPs, but I noticed there's a definite trend. If you're in a special needs profession, you'll meet a lot of FPs there. For whatever reason, I just notice it because people tell me their jobs often, and I hear the correlation there. 2, I know Paul's a bit of a unique INFP. I will say, I'm very sure of his type. I spend
100%.
I spend so much time talking to this guy. His extroverted intuition is so off the radar. It's definitely an any user. Just the ability, the quick wit to change topics, to change ideas, to connect things to seemingly unrelated topics.
See, others would call it an inability to focus. I appreciate your positive spin on it, Joyce.
The ADHD that a lot of us are prescribed.
Oh yeah. What's the difference? I kind of wonder if there's a difference between ADHD and an extroverted perception function higher up.
I feel like this comes up every single time an NP's on a panel.
Oh yeah.
Are we ADHD or just NPs?
Yes.
I mean, I have lots of thoughts about that.
I know you do.
Yeah, I have thoughts about that too.
Yeah. I don't think I think there's a correlation, but I don't think they're the same thing. I think if you just take NE as NE is really just kind of I guess you could just say it's either cross contextualization of various ideas, but really I think it's just more of an ability to see a possibility, possibilities beyond what is observed in the real world. So if you see an object in the real world, you can see beyond it. You can see the possibility beyond it. So, which is not the same thing as ADHD. I think the behaviors that can manifest from being able to kind of see beyond an object or see beyond reality can look and mimic ADHD type behaviors as far as maybe distractibility or kind of going from topic to topic, but it's a different thing. It's really just at some point NPs could, if they wanted to, turn off it's hard, but they could consciously turn off them being able to kind of go from thing to thing, or be able to kind of focus on one subject or task, or complete it if they wanted to. With people who have ADHD, they literally, if they tried to, they have no control. They just cannot will themselves to do it. So that's very different. So yeah, it's with NPs like who don't have ADHD, they can actually regulate their attention if they wanted to. With NPs who do have ADHD, there's an inability, like an actual like mental inability to regulate attention or emotions or a variety of other behaviors.
Yeah, really well said, Christian. So the number of ADHD cases are rising in today's culture just because everything is dividing your attention. You know, there's a shiny billboard there. There's a shiny app calling for notifications.
There's seven panels here.
Yeah, there's several panels here. There's a lot of stimulation in this world where everything is calling for your attention. So naturally, there's going to be a rise in ADHD cases too because of that. And so any type can have ADHD. It manifests differently for different types. I noticed with any perceiver panel I have, eventually ADHD will come up because the behaviors listed in ADHD, there's an overlap between that and being a perceiver too. So that there's that, so it just constantly comes up all the time, like, oh, ADHD or perceiver. So a lot of perceivers wonder if they have ADHD. Yeah. And it's a very, very common thing. The difference, like what Christian said, is you have ADHD or not, depending on if you can turn it off or not. Like, so if you can turn off the interrupting, I don't know, that's even
randomness.
It's complicated because I even think I think interrupting is a P trait too. Okay.
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So a lot of traits that are from ADHD descriptions, they can overlap very well with P traits, but I guess it's also a general diagnosis that anyone can have too. So I don't want to like discriminate among people who don't relate to not. I don't know. So trying to accommodate all the peoples. Anyways, cool, great topic. I'm just gonna steer the conversation back to job careers. All right. Yeah. Who wants to share their experience going through figuring out what career is best for them next?
I really relate to I think what Paul and Christian and Mallory have said so far of I feel like at a very young age, I was considering vocation, where it was like, even when I was in high school, even when I was in junior high, even when I was in like elementary school, it was like a focus on what am I going to do? What matters to me? What's my purpose in life? And it was like, I talk about how INFPs can sort of have main character syndrome. So it's like, we see our lives as like this story unfolding. And I've always seen it that way a little bit, like, and I'm just, what am I going to be in this world? And what matters to me? From a very young age, I really didn't like school. So, and it wasn't that I couldn't do school, it's I genuinely hated it. So because I hated it, I didn't care. So I would be, I got like marks from my teachers of very, not to toot my own horn, very intelligent, very interesting, has so much potential, won't turn in her homework. And it's just like, and that drove my parents just absolutely bonkers. What, Mallory?
I was saying the potential. They always bring up so much potential. Yes. But
it's a common thing for, I think, INFPs.
Yeah. So it was kind of an expectation, and I'm the third child in my family, and my siblings were just real dutiful. They're very good at doing the right thing just because.
SJs.
Yes, they're both SJs. So, and because I just never got that. So it was like, and they would look at me and just be like, why not? Like, just get over yourself. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I don't like it. So I did college for a couple of years, and I only did it because it was like my parents wanted me to, and it was the thorn, and we fought about it every single day, and I hated it. I just was miserable. I remember like in my head just feeling resentful towards everybody and everything that made me have to be there. I tried to study, my major was child psychology. So I've always worked with kids. I was a nanny. I was a preschool teacher for art and music for a few years. And I just got to the point where I just hated school so much and I didn't see the point of it. I didn't see what I wanted to do with it. So I just said, you know what, I'm not against getting a vocation, but the vocation is going to be not school. So I really loved massage therapy and I was very helped by it when I was a kid because I was a migraine sufferer. And so I ended up getting a lot of physical therapy and massage therapy and worked with chiropractor. I worked in a chiropractor office. And so I got my massage degree and I genuinely enjoyed doing that. And I knew very deeply I always wanted to be a mom as well. It was a dream I had growing up. I loved children, all that. So I even, when it came to dating, was very, very serious. When I thought about who I was going to marry and who I was going to settle down with, they had to want kids. They had to be hard workers to support like things that support me and stuff like that. So I ended up finding somebody like that. And it's very serious because when I was talking to people, and I was so young at the time, I was talking to people and they're just like, why are you so ready to just like settle down? And why are you not trying to like explore more? And I'm like, well, I know what I want. I don't know why I'm going to have to do all that other stuff, because I know my values and what I want to be. Of course, now I'm now in my 30s. It's been different. I've lived through the whole mommy years. I've done the massage therapy thing. And I'm like, like there's needs inside that I didn't know were there because I've grown up, I still love being a mom and that's very important to me. But I've started to be like, well, I find that I'm very interested in psychology. Maybe I want to go back to school now I actually value going back to school, which I may do, and trying to narrow that down. And I will say one of my worst traits is when I'm in a job, everything has to align. So I can be extremely stubborn. I had a job as a music director for a while, and I was very specific about what kind of creative control I needed to have to do the job. So I ruffled a lot of feathers being that person. Didn't love ruffling feathers because I don't really like upsetting people, but I'm also super stubborn when it comes to what it has to make sense to me. It has to be good. It has to, we're moving in the right direction. We're not going to do things that are wrong. And so when I saw anything wrong happening that I felt was morally objectable, I was always very vocal about that. And then I ended up quitting because I was just like, nope, we're not doing that. And so now I've been offered a position as an art teacher at my kids' new school. And I have this like internal struggle about it because I'm like, well, being an art teacher wasn't what I want to do with my time, but I know that this is a really good opportunity for me. So like integration of like TE and that is like, okay, just do the job and see where it takes you. You don't have to stay there forever, but just let's give it a try. Don't get so caught up in what do I want, but what is the best thing right now? And what lessons can I learn from this position? And maybe some structure will be good for me in all that. So it is really hard. Vocation is a major thing in my life. I would say one of the biggest themes in my life is trying to pick what is the right thing to do, but I can end up in that process for so long that I don't actually do anything. So
really great points, Erica. I notice with INFPs, when they're choosing a vocation, like Erica was talking about being an art teacher, sometimes I'll talk to them and they'll be in this processing loop about it. They're like, should I not? And they're like weighing the factors. They're seriously like thinking about it very in depth. And I'm like, I'm like, SC would just say, just do it. Do it.
Well, I have SP friends and I'm married to an ISTJ, as I've talked about before. And like one of the things that I have had experience talking to my husband about it, he's just like, every single time I talk to you, you have a different opinion about this position. And I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out if this is going to bring joy to my life, if this is right. I mean, what if I do it and it doesn't work out? And there's also a huge sense of fear of failure. So it's not just about what I want, but it's also a fear of failure. What does this mean to me if I fail really bad? Because failure is painful for me. And so, and so part of that is also getting over the idealized version of myself where I'm not a failure. You know what I mean?
Oh God, resonates so hard with that.
Yeah. So like I have this there's something about FI dominant in general. It's we kind of create in our heads this idealized version of ourselves. So it's like, I couldn't possibly be somebody who fails. And when you experience that, it can hurt so bad. I always say no one can hurt me the way I hurt myself. And it's just like, maybe there's external factors that people are hurting me. It's unfair, it's unjust, but it's because I've brought this up in my mind that this can't be the case. I can't be that person.
Yeah, you talked about, Erica, taking different positions. So one day you might be feeling this way about a job, and then the other day you might have like a slightly different opinion. This goes back to Cristian's original point about how INFP's identity is fluid and it's morphing. So one day they might have this position on that topic, and the other day they might have a radically different position on that topic. I call it the INFP 180 or the FI 180. It's like they'll feel very strongly about one position one day, and then they'll take a FI 180, and then you'll hear a very strong take on a different position another time you talk to them. And I'm like, wow. And so any other INFPs want to share their journey through their career choices?
Well, I just wanted to add in about the fear of failure, because a few years ago, I had a spectacular failure at this job that I had, and I thought I was doing well at the job, but it turned out it wasn't for me at all. Like, my coworkers were lovely, but the environment was a bit toxic. And I'm okay now to have been not there anymore. But that was my first probably massive failure in life. And it still kind of affects me now. But what I've learned is that in order to kind of get over that fear of failure and that perception of being a failure, is doing it a million times. Like putting yourself out there and almost setting yourself up to fail, because then it's like, oh, this is just a part of life. And I know it's easier said than done, but after experiencing something as traumatic as losing a job or feeling like you weren't welcome, is like later on down the road, you're like, well, it can't get any worse than that, you know? So it's like, yeah, it's just becoming kind of numb to it and learning.
You grow through failure, you don't grow through success. So that's part of it. No one likes to fail and all that stuff, but that's literally how you grow. And so like when people like to sit in their comfort zones, it's just not the best for human growth.
Have you guys seen the movie Meet the Robinsons? One of that movie makes me cry every single time I see it. And it's because they literally celebrate failure. They're like, success is great, but failure is what creates learning, and failure is, that's what the exciting part of the creative process is the failure. So I just wanted to say that.
So I found that with a lot of INFPs and also with myself, we're very hard on ourselves. So we perceive ourselves to have failed, but from the outside world and from any objective standpoint, we actually haven't failed. It's just that it might not have been the best fit for us within like this organization or institution, and perhaps those principles didn't agree with our internal reality, right? But I think it's really like, it's very difficult for myself to see that actually we didn't fail, but then we feel like it, right? Like we feel like we failed, but we didn't fail. And any kind of objective standpoint, if you like talk to people, like they would not see you as a failure, but just because we aren't exactly where we think we should be, or at this level of expertise that we think we should be, because we often compare ourselves to other people or from people that we view as successful when they themselves are probably in some ways broken in some way or not perfect in some way. So I think like dealing with this idea of a failure is very like, so I'm 32 years old, and I have to agree, like, I think I've tried so many different things, partly because I've done, or I've seen so many different realities, and I've like just tried like, oh yeah, perhaps this could work, this could work, this could work and stuff. And that's why we fail so much, because we try so much and we see so many realities and we see so much potential. And like when it doesn't reach our idealism, our potential, then we can be very hard on ourselves, right?
That is so true. Yeah, with every INFP friend I've ever had, eventually like they'll show me a song or a poem that they did, and then they'll be like, this is horrible. And I'm like, that was not horrible. That was really good. And they won't believe me. They'll think I'm lying to them or something.
Yeah. It's because
Mhm.
our internal critic, right?
Yes,
Internal
it's very.
I call the internal critic the internal bully, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's a critic. I think it just hurts me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like all of this is related to, like, you know, we've talked about it so many times in this channel, but the IP perfection, and I think it's like really even more so with INFPs because FI, like, it's, you know, obviously it's like it's so personal to who we are, and so like when we fail, like, I mean, it's for us, it's like a reflection on our being, you know, on our identity as like a, you know, as like our essence.
Self-worth, yeah.
Exactly. And so like there's like so much anxiety surrounding that. Like I have, like, for example, like I graduated from law school, but I graduated with like the lowest GPA I've ever, you know, graduated from, you know, from any sort of schooling. I struggled so much, and I actually was academically disqualified. Like I got kicked out my first year, but I was able to petition back in. But like it felt like failure. Like it felt like I had a lot of shame surrounding that. And like whenever I would talk about, like, you know, graduating from law school but deciding not to be a lawyer, like there was some shame in that, like when I would explain that to people. And then I remember one time, like a couple years ago, somebody pointed that out, and they're like, why do you talk about that as like a failure? Like that's a huge accomplishment that you graduated from law school. Even if you did get kicked out initially, like you still completed it. Like that's really tough. And it's just like I'd never thought about it that way because there was just so much shame about the fact that like I struggled so much, and something that like was actually part of my identity. Like I have always viewed myself as somebody who has been who like intellectual stuff, like that stuff has always come really easy to me. And like law school was the first time where like it just totally kicked my ass. And I felt that like that said something about me personally, especially like, you know, Martin was talking about the comparing yourself to other people. And I definitely think this is exacerbated for fours, and the envy thing, because I'm like seeing other people in class and they're like, you know, they're doing well on their tests, or they're, you know, they're raising their hand in class and like answering questions like perfectly. And it's like, wow, like why are they getting it and not me? And so like there's just, you know, and it's just so hard to like to just like battle. There's this internal battle of like perceiving yourself, the ideal version of yourself. Like, you know, like I've just recently struggling this with you know, grad school applications. Like I, you know, like I imagine myself to, you know, like my ideal perfect self would get into a top Ivy League school like Yale or Harvard, and I would get, you know, the offered a tenure track position at like a big school like Stanford or Berkeley. But like and so like I placed a lot of pressure on myself to like make my application materials perfect. And because I've done that, that has like prevented me from actually even starting anything for like, I've been wanting to start like now so I can get a big head start because I have a lot to do. But because like I've demanded perfection for myself, I know that I can't achieve that perfection. So then I just don't even start. And because I know that I'll fail, because like nobody can be perfect. And it's so like there's this like constant struggle of like trying to live up to my own perfect ideals and realizing like that's not healthy or realistic. And one last anecdote, like I that really affected me a week or two ago. Like I watched American Idol, and I'm sure this guy is an IFP or something like that. One of the contestants, he sang the song, and he did a really fantastic job. But at the very, very end, he messed up, and then, you know, the song ends. And as soon as like he ended the song, he started crying. So like he was just like sobbing and like kind of like, you know, like heaving.
It happens in a live performance. They're going to tell you it's happened to them before.
Hunter!
As well.
That was the best performance you have ever given.
Yes.
No. Hunter. Perfection is an illusion.
Yes.
It's an illusion. It doesn't matter. That shows that you are human and vulnerable. And everybody relates to that. And it's amazing. It's emotion. That's what music is. And I know this is a lot of pressure, but it's not about perfection. It's about resonating with people, and you just did.
Yes.
What an incredible song choice. Listen, Hunter. You connected with us. You kept your eyes open, your heart open. You were so connected that you forgot where you were, and that is perfect.
And all the judges were like, "Why? You know, what's wrong?" And then he's like, "I messed up. It wasn't perfect." And like their judges are like, "No, like you did so good." And like they're like, it's not meant to be perfect. Like the imperfection is actually like what makes us connect to you more, like on a human level, and that's like what you're supposed to do when you're singing. Like, you know, they were totally encouraging him and saying like it didn't have to be perfect, and you actually did a great job. But I can still see that like he wasn't fully absorbing that, because he was still crying and just, you know, he was still really upset about it. And like I was crying because like I have so much like trauma surrounding that, like of just this fear of failure and needing things to be perfect, and like thinking if it's not perfect, like the whole world is going to end. And I just felt so much for him. So it's like I think all of these things contribute to like us putting ourselves out there, especially like when it comes to careers and jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. FI and TI concern themselves with purity. So what Cristian said, if it's not a pure enough representation of what they wanted in their head, they can be very hard on themselves. Because it's like, oh, I had such a, you know, pure, perfect conceptualization or how I wanted it to be. And then when it's presented in the outer world or when you're trying to manifest it, it's not as perfect as the version in your head or how you wanted it to be. So the should be is crushing. So whenever it's a lesson that like when you're crushed by something, it's normally a should that you're placing on yourself. And that's why people have that phrase like, don't should yourself. So it's pretty funny. Yeah. And if you're ever dealing with a fear of failure, a saying that helps with it is failure isn't in the falling down, it's in the staying down. So it's okay if you fell down as long as you don't stay down. Like we were saying earlier, permission to fail is the same as permission to learn. So if you don't allow yourself to have the permission to fail, you're also negating permission to learn too, because they're a package deal. You have to allow yourself room for failure so that you have room for learning too.
I wanted to add something really quick, because what you're saying about the staying down thing. I follow this coach on Instagram, and she has a series going out right now. It's called 7 Levels of Energy. And
who's it?
It's Jessica Scupian. Okay.
Oh yeah, her.
Yeah, she's great. And I just wanted to read through them really quick, where it's like how you view yourself as a successful person. There's 7 levels of energy there. The first is victim. The second is antagonizer. The third is the rationalizer. The fourth is the helper. The fifth is the collaborator. The 6th level is connector. And the 7th is creator. And I really like, if you stay in that victim place of staying down, I very much resonate with this idea that she's coming up with the ladders of it, because I can definitely see myself down and up that ladder depending on how I'm feeling. So just wanted to add that.
I'd also like to add, this is incredibly random. I don't know if it'll help anyone else or if I'm just a weird Gen Z woman, but there's this comedian named Eric Andre who's literally insane. And he truly inspires me as a person. And he's kind of inspired me over the years to just let go of certain ideals of myself and be like, we're all just goofy little humans, like on Earth, and like we should just, I don't know, he just embarrassed himself in public all the time, and he just makes a mess, and I'm just like, that's amazing. That's fantastic. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to be him, but
What's his name again?
Eric Andre.
Eric Andre.
And he has this whole show where he just does insane things. But honestly, it inspires me to let go and stop being so afraid of judgment or failure, because we're just humans. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to fail. We're meant to be stupid. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
And also, there's a Kurt Vonnegut quote that says, "We're just here to fart around and nothing more." And so that
Kurt Vonnegut.
just do it, let go. You know, in time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This is why I admire ENFPs.
Yeah. Perhaps with INFPs, there's this propensity to internalize experiences into your identity. So with the SI, like when you fail, it embeds it into the SI, and you're like, that hits harder than the normal person. Plus,
you'll never get over it.
Yeah. And that's probably why there's a higher than average INFPs who identify as HSPs too. It's because the SI, when it experiences a negative experience, it's internalized so much more. Yeah.
Very visceral feeling.
Yeah, with that FI too. Heightened reactions. And so anyone else want to share their career experience?
You want to go, Martin, or me? Doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter to me either. I'll go first.
I got to go tinkle anyway, so.
Right. Go, Martin.
I don't know, career has always, invocation has always been a changing thing within my life, seemingly, especially 117. That's like when I first had essential crisis, right? And I think if you guys know the character from Catcher in the Rye, Holden, what's his name? I forget his name, Holden something. But I could definitely relate with that character so much. And I had a variety of different hobbies that I indulged in, whether it be music, whether it be visual arts, history, philosophy, English. And I think the worst advice that someone can give you as an INFP or ENFP is to follow your passion. and the reason why I'm saying this is because you have so many passions, and also when you're at that age, you just don't know yourself. I don't know if this was with 4-wing-5s especially, but there are so many facets of your identity and kind of guises and masks that you put on in order to blend in so many different people groups and circumstances, that it's hard to actually know who you are yourself, right?
I'm on one, and I relate to that a lot still.
Yeah.
There's also the sense that sometimes our passions are really niche. So it's
passions are like,
follow your passion, and it's like there's nothing I can do with this. Like honestly,
this like they're impractical. Yeah.
Like I can't make my fandom love be a living, really.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
I'm just gonna have to sit there and obsess privately, please.
And I'm gonna just write my fanfic or something.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So this is a time before Instagram and like before the internet was so widespread, I think too. So I think like these kind of niche, kind of nerdy or geeky pursuits that you have in your, sub universe that you don't tell people about, or you just indulge in with certain groups of people, right? It's just like really kind of impractical. So I think various things that I was looking into was like, first I wanted to be an inventor, right? Like it was just because I had so many different ideas, but then I was just like, man, I'm not practical. I'm not an ISTP, so I can't create these things. And And then I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I was just like, man, I'm really not good at math. There's some INFPs that are amazing at math, but for myself, like I couldn't memorize these formulas and build upon them in a kind of a systematic manner. And yeah, like in math itself, like I would often disassociate and daydream and just like not get it. While with other subjects like English or social studies or with art, like those things I really kind of enjoyed. And I think the problem with high school or middle school with INFPs is we live in a society where you are told that you have to be good at everything, right? Like you're supposed to be interested and you're supposed to excel in all different ways. And then they kind of summarize you into like a number system, a GPA, and say like, this is your self-worth, right? Well, like I think with INFPs, they themselves, they mature more later on. Like I would say like by their mid-20s, they kind of understand more who they are, or later, like, or earlier 20s. Because like in high school, you're just confused. And I think most high schoolers are kind of confused and very self-critical and self-conscious, right? So I think for myself, when I was 17 years old, that was a time where I actually felt very much called by God to go into ministry. And this was something that was far away from my mind. So I'm a pastor's kid as well, too, like Paul. And I didn't actually want to fall into like these stereotypes of being a pastor's kid. And I didn't want to deal with like the political stuff within the church. And I didn't want to deal with like the institutionalism and kind of like the facade of what it meant to be like a good Christian like kid or something like that, right? But at the same time, I felt an interest in biblical interpretation, into history, into public speaking, even though I was terrible at it at that point. But I was interested in doing sermons. I was actually interested in helping people, even though a lot of people perceive me as very shy and not empathetic, even though I knew inside of myself, like I really did want to help people. Perhaps not in a practical like ISFJ manner, but more of like in terms of being able to envision a different reality for people and envision a different world for people in which like the perfection of what God intended on this earth, right, could manifest itself, however imperfectly. So I think it was only until I was like 17 or 18 where like I felt called towards that. But then I've had so many different doubts throughout the years of whether I'm actually good at this position, and also am I equipped for this position. And it's funny because I perpetually have this like, yeah, I feel like I'm playing this role. And perhaps it's because I'm very self-critical and very self-reflective. So I know who I am inside of my heart, and I understand that like I could behave and be something else, right? I mean, it's funny, as an adult, I find that my hobbies and my pursuits and my passions, they manifest themselves in different ways in my free time, right? And I'll pursue those things to like a professional level, or a level where I feel at least satisfied. Like, for example, art has been a huge part of my life, and I just got back into it like 4 years ago, and I do painting, I do drawing, I do acrylics and oil paintings, and watercolors. And I know that I probably won't sell these things, like, or make a living off of them, but I think I just do it because I want to kind of express these God-given gifts He has given me. But yeah, like poetry has been something that I just do by myself because I have to kind of express my emotions in an artistic way, or I feel like it's like a really big waste, right? And I think a lot of INFPs struggle with like anxiety and depression and self-doubt. So we kind of want to manifest and create these artistic creations so then people can kind of like enter into that world and somehow be transformed in kind of like a metanoia sense, right? So I don't know, it's interesting in one sense for myself as journeying as an INFP and like kind of potentially kind of leadership positions, because I never see myself or I've never thought of myself as like a leader or as like a visionary or as something like that, but I feel like I've been growing more into those capabilities. And this is something that I've done by just watching others, emulating behavior through reading, and just learning from other types, right? And I think that has been a huge way for me to grow as an individual. And I think I don't know how many INFPs have this kind of growth mindset, but I think we have such a strong growth mindset because we see ourselves as like we're in a continuous journey as an individual, right? That like some people like, yeah, a lot of them thought I was an INTP or INTJ because I was growing so much and changing so much as a person. And I wanted to keep on developing myself in that way. But yeah, like, it's funny because like, so one big passion of mine on a completely different note is like, I would love to go into like agricultural farming because I actually like love the earth and I love like conservation. And I look at like, you know, the climate crisis right now and like what's happening. I'm like, man, this is like a terrible thing that is like structurally built into like our capitalist globalist society, right? But then like for myself, like my FI is just like, man, like I just want to do my own thing. Like I just want to, you know, buy a plot of land, be on a farm, like grow my own crops and stuff, do hydroponics and stuff like that. And just kind of like have like this alternative world, right? But the thing is like for myself, I know that a lot of these things are impractical, but also like, I don't know, maybe like in the future, like I think farming could be somehow incorporated into like my job or my inside like my faith, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a curse actually to actually be always thinking about what is better. And I think there's been times in my job careers where I'm working like a year to 2 years and I just get like really bored with like the routine, right? Like, and I get very good at doing it. And then people see me and they're like, man, you're like on top of your game. And they think that you're satisfied, but in the end, like you're not really satisfied with your work, because somehow either you're working in like an office setting, which I was for a few years, and I think that's like one of the worst positions that an INFP could be. Like, you know, if you're working in an office setting, if you're doing the same routine, if you're not like kind of switching it up, and you feel trapped, right? So for a few years, I dealt with like a lot of anxiety, right, and depression because I didn't feel like I was I still wasn't expressing my inner talents and also like what I wanted, right, and what I saw my life in general, right, and I still struggle with that, right, but yeah, I think like vocation, I would have to echo what Paul is like. I think it's better in a sense of like it's like a highway itself, and you are on like a small path, and as long as it's within like this highway or like larger kind of vision, then that's okay, right? And I think because our value system is so kind of big and we can adapt according to like certain circumstances, I think as long as we can make some type of living, like have a paycheck, we can still achieve our values, and we can still achieve like our dualism of like who we are in general, right? So I think like on a practical note, it's really hard to keep on doing your job like day to day. As long as you're changing it up, as long as you're satisfying your NE, and as long as you're expressing your values as much as possible, like I think it takes a huge discipline to stay within a certain field for a long time, right? And to really stick to it and really try to like listen to other people, because often other people will affirm the work that you're doing, even when you're trying to pick apart every single thing that's wrong with it, right? So that's like some advice I've had. I have as like a INFP in like almost their mid-30s or so.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah. I could see Paul hard nodding to what you were saying. when you mentioned, Martin, how the worst advice you can give to an INFP is follow your passion because they have so many. I'm like, that's so Paul to like the nth degree. It's
yeah, like
you have the FI that wants to find passion, the NE that can find so many passions within that FI.
INFPs with interests and vocation, they want to keep all of their interests pure as well. So it's like all our little niches, all the things we're good at, all the things that we love. It's really hard for us to be like, I want to combine them both, because if you combine them both, they're like, it's almost like a kid with a plate of their food, and their food, like they don't want it touching. You know, like it's like, oh, that's touching it. Like I have such a aversion sometimes of combining two things that I care really so much about, because it impurifies it. Like so it can be really tricky, like to try to combine two things.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Want life to have this coalescence, this cohesion, and it's so hard to find that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And so, Sean, would you like to tell us about your story?
I'm not going to shut up, so this is a big part of my life. It's going to be a big rant.
All right.
We're ready.
Food then.
All right, so apparently I am the old one. I'm 40 years old, so I just turned 40 in February. Everyone says I look like 10 years younger, but anyway. So going through high school, I was like severely bullied like every day, like constantly. So in school, just like Eric was saying, I'm not a school person. I've never been. I've known a lot of INFPs that have like PhDs and things like that, but for me, I'm just not one of those INFP school people. So I was just trying to survive high school, and I was getting Fs, all kinds of stuff. But in 11th and 12th grade, I followed one of my friends into a vocational school, which was a different school than that high school. It was kind of a means to kind of run away, kind of. So I went over there, followed my friend. He went to electronics, which is heavily math-based. Like going with Martin was saying, I hate math. But I have a degree in math, vocational and college. But I cannot stand math. I despise it. But it's what I've done for the last 22 years.
Wow.
So I went into that, and then coming up to like I was in my senior year of high school. And it was around November time frame. I had no idea what I was going to do. I wasn't going to go to college. I didn't have a job lined up. I just was, again, trying to get out of high school. And then so my mom recommended the military, and I've never had anyone go into the military. I didn't have any ambition to go in the military. I wasn't running around as a kid in military uniform, jumping through bushes or something. I just did it as a means to just go somewhere because I had no plan. So I signed up, and I went in like a month after I graduated high school in '99. And then I got placed into a electromechanical, like diesel mechanic kind of job, working on all this test equipment for aircraft or whatever. I made like a 30-minute YouTube video on me in the military, so it's a long video I have on my channel that kind of goes into everything that I've never told anyone in my real life, but on YouTube it's fully there. So I went in, and I've also got comments the fact that I went in the military. I'm not an INFP because INFPs don't go in the military. So I've got that comment a couple times, which is just funny to me. But anyway, so I went in, I was in the military, and it's a very not preferred INFP structure, just like standard school system is. It's not really preferred for INFPs. So neither is military. Everyone can assume that, and red flags can go off in their head with everything that goes on about it. But I heavily intoxicated myself the whole entire 9 years I was in. I didn't party in high school. I didn't go to prom. I didn't do anything social because I was just hiding, trying to survive, really. So in the military, it's like, when in Rome, everyone's drinking, things like that. So that's when I kind of discovered alcohol, and I just kind of subdued my confusion, all the stuff of being in a military structured environment, whatever. I was drunk a lot, like a lot. So I went through all that. I don't know what my point was. Oh, so then anyway, I got out, and then I went to like a job placement agency, and they put me. They asked if I could work on elevators. So I was like, I don't know. So they put me there, and it's kind of electromechanical based as well. So I went into the elevator world and worked on that. I was a technician for 4 years. One thing about the military was a big thing is I am pro going into the military for INFPs. I know it's the massive scary thing, and it's just not preferred. But I am a firm believer in just doing things that are not preferred to you. And that's how you kind of round yourself out as a human being and can do other things. The more you do things that are hard, the easier life kind of becomes, in my opinion. But also what the INFP what the military did for me was like force me to stay in a job. So like I commonly see all these types, especially when it's a young INFP, they're job hoppers. It's like 1 year after another, it's job after job. In the military, you don't have an option. You sign up for 6 years, whatever it is, you're stuck, whether you like it or not. So yes, that's part of a thing. I hate being caged in. I've never been married. I don't like any time I'm caged in or structured or whatever. I can't stand it. I just don't. So that was a part I had to kind of, get over. But at the same time, it did provide me longevity, because still to this day, I've never had a job longer than the military. Because usually around the 3-year mark, I quit. Even though I'm like the top of my game, I know everything. I'm very confident in my job. I tend to quit right when that peak hits. Because usually when it's like at that point, there's nothing really else to learn, kind of thing. It's kind of like, all right, I kind of mastered everything. Now what else can I do? So I don't ever foresee me having like a 20-year career. I don't know how I'm going to retire. I don't really have a plan. So I'm kind of like a hopper around, but it's like, so when I got out, I worked on the elevators, escalators, again, another ST dominated job. But that's where I kind of flowed at. That's where my vocational degree was, whatever. And then the insurance was too high. So then I had to quit that job, because I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I kind of need job insurance, whatever. So I couldn't afford the insurance medically, so I quit that, and then I just shotgunned a bunch of jobs out to electromechanical jobs, and then I got like a conveyor technician job working on conveyors at the local airport or whatever. So I did that, and then like a month later, the maintenance manager put me at assistant manager, and I had to think about that, because I was like, I don't want to be a manager. So he did that, and I did that for like 7 months, and then he left, and then all of a sudden I fell into the maintenance manager's position in charge of 18 people. Which for that 4 years I did that job was the worst experience of my whole entire life. The most stress I will ever endure. I will never do that again. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I was successful at it, but the first year or so I was doing a lot of INFP preferred leadership kind of stuff, because in the military they train you heavily leadership skills. They develop you as a person, because that's what they do. They try to build you up. So I had a lot of leadership skills, but leadership and management are two different things, completely two different things. Two different spectrums of things. So I did a lot. And anytime you do a spectrum of one side or the other, it's not good. Whether it's heavily extrovert, heavily introvert, all that stuff, it's not good. You want to balance with everything in life. But so I was doing heavily leadership stuff where I was like having like 8-hour conversations with these. Well, this is why. This is the big picture. And just, I was trying to explain all this crap, which the operation was essentially failing because everyone didn't know what to do. They didn't understand my rules, because my rules, I would bend them because someone had a bad day and I let them get away. And then everyone else was like, dude, you can't write me up because you didn't write him up. And then it was all bad. So I had to like troubleshoot because I needed a job. So like during my whole life has been stressful up to this point. The last 5 years, I've been working on it really hard to get it better, but I'm a stress eater and stress buyer. Those are my two things, like a stress purchaser. I don't like material. I'm trying to minimize everything, go minimalistic kind of stuff. But like up to this point, all the stress I've endured, it caused me to go into debt heavily. And a lot of my jobs I trapped myself because I needed to pay debt and credit cards and this and that. So as much as an INFP would prefer to just say, screw you guys, and, just walk away and go somewhere else because, someone's bullying you or a supervisor's mean or whatever, the job doesn't fit anymore. I had to kind of essentially stay in these high stress jobs because they pay higher to meet these stupid like credit card debt stuff. It just kind of held me. So it's like, I didn't really have a choice. And again, so anyway, so I when I was doing that maintenance manager job, I went to college because the GI, the military pays for college. So I essentially, because it was a use or lose thing, and I never had any ambition to go to college. I didn't, again, like I said, I didn't want to go to school or anything like that. So the military pay, and I was kind of looking, I'm like, dude, if I don't go to college, then I'm kind of an idiot because it's like, they're going to throw away that money. So I went to night school for 3 years to get like an associate's degree in electronics. Again, because it was kind of I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just go to electronics again. So I got all this electronics education, which is again math-based, but it's something that I've deeply strapped myself in because anyway. So I did all that. I went to night school. I got a degree, and then so I did that for 4 years. Again, worst job ever. Don't do management. I hate managing people. So I went to the next job, which was through a friend not a friend, but a colleague in the elevator world. He went to this company like 2 years before I did, and he kind of he would fly out of the airport all the time, and he's like, come over. So I followed him. It's like I'm still in it to this day. I'm at like 6 years right now. But it's in the food processing industry to where I go around all over the States. I travel week to week on a plane, and I'm constantly in a new environment. Pre-COVID, next week is actually my first assignment out for a whole year. I've been working from home, but I'm going back out on the road starting next week. So I'll be on planes like week to week. I go to new customers' plant. There's a lot of stress involved with it, obviously, but I'm essentially I'm kind of like a project manager. So I have to do what I've been doing for the last 20 years in this, is basically be an ESTJ kind of person where I kind of do lead TA. And it's massive stress. I've been doing it for so long. But my jobs, they don't allow me to do something when I feel like it. It's all, we want our machine fixed. We want this done. I don't care when you feel like doing it. We need it done. Time is money. Chop, chop, chop. So I can do it. I've been doing it forever. But again, I've been masquerading at work as an ESTJ. So again, up to this point on YouTube, people, have said that I'm up to 10 different types that people think I am. And again, I understand why. It's I'm not I haven't lived a stereotypical preferred INFP life, and I'm also 40 years old. So and there's a lot from my history that kind of intertwines all that development stuff in there. But yeah, my T is heavily developed, and when it's go time and I'm project manager person, I can do it. I can tell people what to do, but I absolutely loathe it. I hate managing anyone. It's very draining for me. I just want everyone to do their job, and we just all kumbaya, whatever. But but that's not how my jobs have been. So the last 5 years, I've been I really was focusing on my debt because I knew that was pigeonholing me to these crappy jobs. So I'm I tucked that down, and all my debt's kind of paid off, getting there or whatever. But it's way better than it ever was. So that's when YouTube came into play. Because for 3 years ago, I was making little crappy videos for work and just training videos and doing stuff like that. And then one of the guys, he's an INTJ, he's an engineer guy. But he was you should be a vlogger. And I didn't even know what that was. But essentially, I looked into it. I was like, hell no, I hate social media. I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like to be in front of a camera. I don't even like pictures taken. I don't take selfies.
Same.
So YouTube is one of my biggest fears. If you really know me, I mean, if you look at me now and go on my channel, everyone's like, oh my God, that's some kind of ENFP on crack. But it's my passion, excitement. It's my creative outlet, because if you're suppressed so much from doing ESTJ type stuff for that long, and then all of a sudden you find something that I never knew about, video editing or videography, none of that stuff. So I self-taught myself starting 3 years ago. But I just started thinking, I'm like, you know what? You like this, you like to help people. You like the feeling when you always watch INFP creators in the past. You like to relate to the little quirks they do and things like that. So why don't you just do it? So again, me starting out, it was a massive fear. And And then I found out after, after doing like 2 or 3 videos, I was very comfortable in front of a camera because it's weird. I don't tell people I don't talk like this in real life. I don't tell nobody this kind of stuff ever. You will not have me rant this long to even like friends. I just don't. So like on a camera, it's weirdly comfortable to me. But like if I'm in a business meeting and there's like 3 guys, like colleagues of mine, I don't want to be the center of attention. If someone asks me something, I'll say something in 15 seconds and then not say anything else for the next hour. I just don't feel comfortable when people look at me. It's weird. But like on YouTube, it's completely different. So like I'll say anything on here and I don't even care. Because it's like whatever. I don't know. But it's so I told you guys this was gonna happen.
That's okay. No, it was entertaining and enjoyable.
Sean, I wanted to tell you something that you said that made me think of my dad, actually, because my dad is an INFP, and he was forced into, not forced, but like similar to you, where he has responsibilities and things he needs, to answer for and to support a family and everything like that. He had to get into very STJ professions. And he ended up like, he's a priest now, actually. And so it's like, he really wanted to be in ministry, and he wanted to do very NFP type of work. And so I can see that an INFP that has to like do the TE work, how that can be. And I grew up with it.
And that's what YouTube is. It's like I'm kind of reaching to I'm grabbing everything I got, and it's like, because when I start a video, to me it's just really I let loose because I got so much like creativity and all the INFP preferred stuff. It's all like pushed down really deep. So it's like when I come on a video again, it's like I like the creative editing. A lot of people don't like video editing. I like to video edit because to me video editing feels like writing in a sense. I'm not always I don't like public speaking, whatever. I can do it because I got to train people at all these places. So I can talk in front of groups and all that. I do it all the time for my job. But like, I prefer to write. But video editing is very much that. I film a video and I can edit it. I can add stuff after the fact. I can, if I say something stupid, I don't have to beat myself up because I can just chop it out. So I can kind of articulate what I'm trying to convey to people, but it's on my time. Like it's, you know what I mean? So I have time to do it. Because commonly when I say stuff, especially like in a live platform like this, I say stuff that I kick myself up for days and like, damn it, why'd you say that? But like, it just gives me time and it's more comfortable. So it's like, I'm trying to stay with it. And maybe that YouTube does lead to, some kind of, I've never been paid for anything on YouTube. I've never made any money still. So it's not like a money thing for me, but it's kind of like if I just keep chipping away and trying to get better, does it open a door to some kind of creative world that I can somehow escape the TE electronics I'm so in depth with that it's not preferred to me. I don't know. So I got bills. I got a 12-year-old daughter, things like that I have to, maintain. But I'm trying to just right now is really limit my bills as much as I can. So I'm not pigeonholed to like a high stressful TE electronics job because that's my 22-year history. I just don't like to be trapped, and that's kind of what I've done. And now I'm trying to figure out a way out of it. So whatever.
Yeah, great discussion, everyone. And so any last thoughts on careers and INFPs? What advice would you give to an INFP listening to this, trying to figure out where they should take their life?
I'm listening.
Well, I would say that I think it's important to you do have to be careful with like following your passion because like those can change. But I think maybe something that like is in alignment with values, which I see not changing as much with INFPs. Like I see identity maybe changing more, being a little bit more fluid, but like I think values tend to be something that's a little bit more constant and continuous with INFPs. So maybe something like a general like value that you have, like I want to help, like I like helping people. Because like then if you're like, I really like, therapy, or I like painting or something, like those get a little bit too specific maybe. So I think if you can broaden your search more by just kind of having like trying to find jobs that are in alignment with like general values. And I think that'll like open up some possibilities more. The other thing that I would recommend is trying to find a way to just kind of like put yourself out there and just do like try something instead of just like waiting for the perfect job to come along. I think one of the things that like my career counselor recommended, which was really helpful, was in the process of trying to figure out like what you would like to do. First, read if you have narrowed your kind of career choices down to, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 different career choices, Google search those careers and read descriptions of like what those jobs actually entail, and then try to like use FI to like kind of put yourself in those jobs and think, okay, like, so these are what these kind of jobs typically entail. Like, can I see myself doing these things day in and day out? And then once you do that, then if you've narrowed it down from that, then start trying to see if you can reach out to people that who are in those careers and do what my career counselor called informational interviews. Email them or like, reach out to them and say, hey, like, I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you. I'm potentially interested in this career. I would love to, get more information about like what your day-to-day is like. And so that should give you like, especially somebody who's actually in that business or career, that should give you like a lot more context on how like those careers look, especially in the day-to-day, which is really important. And then you just kind of go from there, but I think those are like kind of the starting places. And then once you do get a job, like try to stick with it for at least 2 to 3 years. And then if you really don't like it, then move on to something else. But especially like businesses like understand that like millennials and younger tend to switch careers more often. So like if they see like you've only been at a job for like 3 years, like that's more acceptable. But still, like if you're moving jobs like every couple months or like after a year, their businesses are going to be more reluctant to hire you because they're going to be like, okay, this person is just we're going to be wasting all this money training them, and then they're going to be leaving like in a few months or a year. So like just try and stick with something, because sometimes like, again, our interests evolve or like our identity evolves, and so like we might be able to find some aspect of a job that we're currently doing that like might be of more interest to us if initially we're like we don't really care for the job. So those are the things that I'd recommend.
I would also like to recommend this idea that you don't want to, sorry Sean, but you don't want to place yourself in debt or in a place where you feel trapped, where you're working in a job because you simply have to as a means of survival. I would recommend having some amount of savings built up. So if you ever decide to switch a career, like because you don't like your position, you have that freedom to, whether that be to get more further education, or just like, or even for some INFPs, they like just taking time off of work to be able to think about their values and where they're going to go in life. So I think having some amount of like a pillow for a pillow of savings so that you can like kind of switch when you want to get out of something. But yeah, like I mean, a lot of it for an INFP, I think, is also just kind of experiencing these different jobs and careers. And then just that's when you know for sure, like if this is something that you can do for like a long period of time, right? And then consistently finding ways to challenge yourself so that you can grow in that career, because I think we can get really bored or unsatisfied with something when we feel like we've perfected it, but there's always room for growth, whether it be within an organization, maybe like moving laterally, right? And maybe not up, but laterally into another department or something like that.
I'm going to diverge a little bit. I think they gave some really good practical advice. But I would also say, don't be afraid to do things non-traditionally. It's like, for me, going to school was just not for me. And I mean, and deciding to think about outside the box and go to trade school, for example, instead was a much better experience for me, and I found myself just so much happier in general, and I still love the job that I went to get vocational training for. So it's one of the things that I did, you know, had a lot of conflict with my parents over school, but one of the things that they really did say to me is they want something for me to fall back on, something. So for me, that's why I went into the trade school. I learned a trade that would support myself, but also something that I genuinely loved that had a point to it. And to compound on values as opposed to hobbies. Values are everything, to be honest. And if you haven't figured out what they are or you can't name them, that is exactly the first thing I would say is does helping people make you happy? Does collaborating with people make you happy? Does what kind of lifestyle do you like to have that will feed you? For me, working as an independent contractor as opposed to being led is a lot easier for me and makes me feel more motivated, if being self-motivated as opposed to having a boss and coworkers telling me what to do. I love working with people one-on-one as opposed to, working in a traditional work environment. So those things I've always known about myself. Not that you shouldn't ever give those things a try. Maybe some INFPs really thrive in that situation, but knowing yourself. And when I say knowing yourself, I mean knowing how you tick, having some kind of backup plan to fall back on. Don't be afraid to explore the options beyond what is the traditional thing to do, if that traditional thing is creating you unhappiness. And it's okay to be unhappy with the way it's set up. I honestly sometimes think the educational system is really messed up and doesn't really serve millennials and below, because you have to get certain kinds of degrees in order to work in jobs you don't even like. Anyhow, that's just my countercultural response to life in general.
Well, I feel like I'm not in a good position to give advice since I don't have years on me, but I've learned from other people, and I kind of want to piggyback off of what Erica said, where it's if you're young like me and you're currently looking for a career, don't be afraid to reach your hand in different things, to just try things out. And you're still young. You have a lot of time to figure things out. So just don't be afraid to try. And like we said about failure is just a part of life, and you can learn from it and then learn how to do better in another situation. And I don't know, the world is open to you.
Yeah, my take is I always recommend, especially in the 20s and all that. I think it's important for us to dabble with things. I think it does kind of give us, because it hones our path later on. Paul was bringing up that one video that I made somewhat recently. But that's how I see it. It's in the beginning, it's we're dabblers, we're doing all kinds of stuff. We don't know where the hell we fit in. Society doesn't really prefer us and things like that. But if you just dabble and go around and you're just trying to figure stuff out, eventually, when you get to mid-30s, and I've talked to multiple INFPs saying there was kind of a switch they had that really kind of honed in on their path kind of thing. And that came around mid-30s to 40 kind of range. But that happened for me, and that's what it was. And that's why I kind of shared my story, because like Martin said, it's that's the worst thing I did for myself. I don't look back and so much have a regret. Because again, who I am today is because of all the crap I went through and this and that. But yes, to be pigeonholed by banks kind of whispering at the back of your neck saying, hey, if you're not successful and you don't just say yes, sir, every 5 seconds, even though you don't agree for it, then we're gonna take your house and take your whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things for me. It's I think it's important to go into some more of a preferred job, career field or whatever. But at the same time, just don't trap yourself like I did. That's literally why I explained it. It's just, I know INFPs have addictive personalities, especially under stress. That's what I'm saying. When I'm not stressed out, I'm not stressed buying crap, because again, when I buy something, it's just a short-term Band-Aid that goes away in a week. And then, so I try to, that's what I've been working on the last 5 years is okay, how do I fix this? Okay, it's fix my debt. And then once that happened, now I'm able to kind of blossom in a position because I'm not trapped. I have things I can do for myself. I can, eventually quit my job and take a job that's half the pay kind of thing, because I don't need the pay. I'm not money driven. I'm not. I just need to pay the bills or whatever. But like when you trap yourself, you're going to stress yourself out, which is going to kind of do it. So I don't know. I'm a weird mixture of how my life played out. So I'm not so regretful because I haven't like ended up on the street or homeless or anything like that. I've never been unemployed a day of my life. So I just been working since age 15. And that's just how it's been. But it's been a very, very stressful job life for me. But again, now I'm trying to just really alter that and go back. Like Martin, as I said, it's just like I'm getting aware of all that stuff. I'm trying to get away from the trap that I essentially created for myself. And that's where I'm at today. So.
I wanted to say really quick, Sean, the debt thing is such a relatable experience for adults. And so thank you for sharing that struggle, because I'm married to an accountant, and he does so much research on debt and financial advising and stuff like that. And it is a deeply difficult thing to be stuck in for people. And I just wanted to say that that's really admirable that you've taken steps to.
But it ruined my relationships and everything like that, right? My kid's mom, like I've had another, like I had 8-year relationship with my kid's mom, and then another 1.5 years with the girl that came 2 years after that. But those are my longest relationships I've ever had. But like the financial debt load was like on my shoulders, and it's like, so I all aspects of my whole life, I'm not given a fair chance.
Yeah.
So like that's where I literally just put my foot down. I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. And then so that's where I literally 5 years ago I started like, okay, how do I fix this? Well, this is how. And so I've been on that journey, and now I'm just able to kind of breathe better. So it's just finance is just you don't like Martin said, you don't want to go down that road. Trust me.
Well, fantastic advice, INFPs. Really, really great stories. It's really nice to hear all of the ways that you have gone about your career journeys and finding yourselves and then losing yourselves and then finding yourselves again and then losing yourselves and then finding yourself. I see that as the FI Dom life. You're like cycling through identities. So it's like finding and losing this cycle. Yeah. It was interesting to hear about FI and its fluidity with its identity and how it can shift, its passions can kind of shift, especially with extroverted intuition. You can see like so many possibilities, and then your FI has all these passions. And so it can be hard to pick a career that fits truly on all levels, like a truly FI aligned, a career that has FI alignment in it. And so that was really nice to hear all your stories. Yeah. I'm sure it will resonate with the FI of the INFPs listening to this, that they're kind of wandering and looking for a job that is best for them, or a life that is best for them. And I think that this will provide them a little bit of direction or hope that if someone has already done it, then it's possible. And so to have people explain their experiences and how they've overcome it, or how they're still going through it, is very human. And it gives a humanizing element to the INFPs watching it, going like the struggle is human. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay if you have a perfectionistic quality to you. It's okay. You're probably doing way better than you think that you are.
It's horrible. Perfection.
Yeah,
and it's okay to feel like you're lost.
Everyone's
like, even if people perceive you not to be, but yeah, like it's okay to feel like you're lost, because that's where our creativity and our passion comes out of, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea that we can be these blank slates, and then we can kind of, self-create ourselves, right? Because we have so many aspects of ourselves, and yeah, it's okay to feel like you're lost.
And yeah, so there's one last thing I'd love to say is that, and I would love younger INFPs to internalize this, is it can seem like we are flaky or unsure or going back around all the time and trying to figure out what the right thing is, and we're overthinking everything. But it's my experience as I've gotten older that the people that I see having these midlife crises, they're now doing that exploration that I have done my entire life. And it makes me feel less crazy now, because I'm sitting there going like, I had no idea this person who worked in this field and did such a great job and was so successful is now like, why did I get into this? That is like, it's always mind blowing for me when somebody says like, why did I get into this? Because I'm sitting there going like, wow, because I kind of from the get go, I'm like that, like, oh, why would I like that? Would I like that? It is this one, like, and so just know that you're processing it in a different time frame than most people eventually get to.
INFPs are front loading the identity work. So normally people think about their identities, midlife, but the INFP very early on thinks about if things truly resonate with them, if it's truly a path worth taking, if it's something that jives and is in alignment with their purpose as a person. Yeah. You're answering the tough questions early on, or your brain wants to know those questions early on. There's a desire, there's a yearning, there's a longing to know those things. And so it's like a journey to try to figure out those things that INFPs embark on way earlier than most people on average.
I'm more excited about my 40s than any other decade. Trust me. Like all the other ones kind of sucked, but like going into the 40s, like I'm super excited about the rest of life. I really am. That's how I look at it. It's just, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, we have to stop thinking that after your 20s, everything's over. Because I feel like a lot of people my age are like, if I don't have my career by 25, I am a loser. And that needs to stop being the thing. Like you can find happiness whenever, you can find satisfaction whenever. And life is
I just really think that INFPs do find it later in life. That's just kind of generally how we're built, like everyone's saying. But it's just that's how my experience is the old guy on the panel. But that's really what I see it as. It's like I said, the 20s, 30s, all that kind of wasn't the best. But now it's getting pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited.
That's good news for the INFPs watching. Yeah. And so Sean has a YouTube channel called INFP HD. Go check it out, INFPs. And I'll have everyone's Twitters and social medias linked below too. This is a pleasure. It's nice to hear the job journeys you've all been on because it's a wild ride. People get to have an insider's look into it, and that they don't feel crazy when they hear it. It's like, oh, another person or another INFP has, switched their area of passion over time, and it wasn't the end of the world. So it's reassuring to the people listening. Yeah. And it's nice hearing Martin when he was talking about how he wants to help people, but he doesn't want to help them in practical ways, but he wants to help them metaphysically or intellectually or spiritually. I'm like, that is the INFP way. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And, with Cristian and his ability to articulate his INFP journey, like Cristian's awareness of, the INFPs are wandering through life, and that it's a very INFP theme to kind of cycle through or go through these various job choices or career or school paths. So Cristian is a really great relatable figure in that respect. Yeah. And his ADHD talks always on point. Yeah. And then there is Erica. Yeah. Erica's experience with her INFP dad, shines a light on the older INFP perspective too. Yeah. And those motivational sayings you hear from these YouTube channels or these places that you watch or these coaches that you hear from, it's nice. It puts these INFP lessons or these lessons that people can listen to generally into a succinct way that, is really helpful. Yeah, that's awesome. And Mallory, I really like listening to your down to earth and chillness. You'll convey your story, but you'll say it in this type 9 chillness. Yeah. There's this funny phrase I heard before from type 9s. If I was any more chill, I would be dead. And I feel like you really embody that because there's when you talk, it just feels calm. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. So you're a chill pill. And Sean.
I'm crazy. I know. See it.
You're not crazy. Oh my gosh. Well, you're a 4, so I mean, there's a bit of there. I'm kidding. Yeah. But I enjoy how HD your setups always are. It really speaks for the high quality of your YouTube channel. Yeah. And I said this before, but I'll say it again. It's really nice that your FI doesn't want to charge for people watching your videos. You don't put any advertisements on your video, and you don't put any monetary gain on your channel because you want to keep it pure, because your FI wants to keep it pure. You want to do it out of good intentions and good motives. You don't want to do it from a place of capitalism or gain, self-gain.
I put
And
like ads recently on like 10 videos recently, but like listen to me, that's just like the last like 2 months. But it's because like YouTube is a business basically. So like if you don't have ads activated, it's kind of gonna bury your video in a sense. So in that aspect, but again, unless you hit like $100 threshold every month, I don't get paid anything. So I have ads on there, but I still haven't made a single penny. So it's just not. I'm not in it for the money. It's really my creative outlet, passion kind of thing of just developing that and helping people and whatever. But I don't know, whatever. So it's a business kind of thing. They got to make money.
Yeah. It's sad and unfortunate, I guess, that life never lives up to the FI ideal. It's always ruined by some sort of some sort of.
Get that reality out of here.
yeah, sure, reality. Yeah, and so in this panel sorry, I hit my coffee. And so in this panel, you can see this theme with INFPs having creative outlets. So there was talk about singing, poetry, art, or video making, or some sort of creative outlet unique to that INFP. And so FI commonly manifests itself in creative outlets. And sometimes this is explained by FI being kind of languageless. So a way to communicate FI more purely is through an artistic outlet for some people. And so it's nice to hear about that artsy side to INFPs, or that side where you're creative and you just let out parts of you, those genuine parts of you there. So I don't know, it's great. Yeah, I'm sorry for FE and y'all. Yeah, it's nice talking to y'all. Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thanks, Joyce, for summarizing
Bye.
everything.
Bye.